My name is full name James F. Whalen. I go by Jim. I've been a member of the Washington, D.C. chapter of the Circumnavigators Club since 1985. And my relationship is with Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. Well, mostly, I was a member of the selection committee for the Georgetown grantee. Started doing that in 1985, immediately on joining the club. I was actually recruited by Brian Evans, and I stayed in that role until 2015, when Ellen Park urged me to take over the coordinator role for the Washington chapter. Since that time, I estimate that I've dealt with 10 grantees, and that means taking them from the selection process through their trip and through their submission of their final report. When I took over in 2015, there was quickly a turnover, 2 or 3 deans. And then I began working with Assistant Dean Lisa Gordonier, who was wonderful to work with. And I dealt with her up until 3 years ago, when Lisa went on to other duties in the School of Foreign Service and was replaced by Annette Russell is my current dean. She is very enthusiastic about the grant program. As a matter of fact, she told me that she was looking at another job within the School of Foreign Service, but did not take it because she wants to stay involved with the grant program. She is very engaged, very helpful. I've never asked her to do anything that she didn't produce. Annette has been especially attentive, and I attribute the growth in the number of applicants this year to her efforts in advertising the program through what she calls her information session. I start with the dean around August of every year, and at that point, I provide the dean with the guidelines for that year. They don't change much, but just to be sure, I forward the guidelines to the dean. We set up a schedule. When will she have her info session? When will they get the 5 selected proposals to my committee? The committee have to get the 3 finalists back to the dean. And when will we hold the interviews? And then once we have selected a grantee, then I move more toward dealing with Tracy on the nuts and bolts, say the airfare, with Brian Evans on finalizing the preliminary and then final itinerary. And then by that time, it's summer and the grantee has departed, usually around May, end of May. And I'm in touch with the grantee. I emphasize that I am his primary contact. If there are any changes, any glitches, I want to know about them. And then as soon as he gets back, I remind him of his deadline. For instance, we want his expenses within 60 days. We want his outline of his paper within 30. And then we want the paper within 90 days of his arrival back in the U.S. In most cases, they opt to make it their final thesis. In that case, I have to work with them to get approval of their faculty advisor and work with Greg for final approval from our end, then give the grantee a date that we want that final paper. We changed radically this year and last by employing Zoom. It was a requirement that the applicant had to be in residence in Georgetown to be considered. But we used to always set them up for roughly the second first or second week in December, trying to work around their exam schedule. We did it in the McGee Library and Intercultural Center, and that is where we hold the Zoom meetings also. Now, my committee at the moment is Skip Knudsen, who lives in Vermont, and Ryan Evans. He this year came back to the selection committee, and Ramya, who was on the selection committee this year. We're looking at her to take a more active role. The interviews are pretty set. We do the three of them in an afternoon, usually 1, 2, and 3 p.m. We have the applicant give us 5 minutes to describe the proposal, and then we spend about 20 minutes asking questions about the proposal. Then we have a section, the what ifs, if you encounter the problems, using examples from past applicants. What do you do if you're on a hiking trip and you break your ankle? And then we give them 5 minutes to wrap up why they should get the grant. And I promise them that no matter what the result, we will give them a letter of reference to a graduate school or an employer or another scholarship. And not many of them take advantage of that. Some do. And then I tell them that day whether they have gotten the grant or not. Maybe an airport is closed or a potential interviewee isn't available, and rely on the applicant to come up with an alternative. And I have told them previously that they have to get any change in the itinerary approved. So then I go to Greg and say, here's the problem. Actually, I keep Greg advised from the moment the problem emerges. We had one applicant who wanted to got our permission to use it for the final senior thesis. And there was a meeting where she was to present it at the university. I wasn't there, but Ellen Park was there and realized that this grantee had only taken one stop, one destination, and one event there, and was making that her senior thesis, and also wanted to make her final paper for us that one stop and one event. So we had to get her to rewrite her paper to include the entire circumnavigation. One other unusual thing was during COVID, the grantee couldn't travel. So he got what I call a participation trophy. He got a very generous award for having participated, but he never had to make the trip and never had to do on a paper because he hadn't made the trip. I did my first circumnavigation as an officer on a merchant ship. The company was American Export Lines. They were headquartered in New York. They bought another company called the Branson Steamship Company. And aside is Jacob Branson, the son of the founder, was a member of the Circumnavigators Club. The Branson Steamship Company ran 12 ships in around the world, so they typically left New York, headed east, and were back in New York 4 to 5 months later, having stopped at 14 ports along the way, loading and discharging cargoes. Just to give you an idea of the stops, one of them that I made, this was beginning in November of 1962. Departed New York, stopped in Barcelona, Genoa, through the Suez Canal, Karachi, Bombay, Singapore, Saigon, Busan, Korea, 4 stops in Japan, the last and longest being Kobe, San Francisco, 1 stop in Portland, Oregon, to load lumber, and then through the Panama Canal, Puerto Rico to discharge cargo, and then back to New York. And then go down the coast, loading cargo in places like Baltimore, Philadelphia, Norfolk, Savannah, then back to New York, and then start another around the world trip. This was really my first job after I graduated from the maritime. So I had to learn to be an officer. So everything was new. So I had to constantly be on my toes, trying to learn. And fortunately, I had some very good mentors. I was the most junior officer on the deck department, but I had ones above me, and and they were second mates, and just not much older than I, but they're more experienced and very willing to share. So I learned a lot from them. The contrast is it's a job. I'm not a tourist. I'm not a grantee. On the ship, I have things I have to do. 2 4-hour watches at sea, navigating. In port, usually an 8-hour watch, and it could be any 8. Might be at night, might be afternoon. And then if I want to see anything, be a tourist, I've just got to forsake my sleeping time and go ashore. It was easy enough to do in Bombay because we would sit at anchor for 3 weeks waiting for a berth. In a place like Hong Kong, we had to work quickly because they did. I'm often asked, and I without hesitation, I reply, the most interesting thing I saw was the Panama Canal. How efficient it was. You got there in the morning. We were approaching from the Pacific side from Balboa. Very quickly, a pilot came aboard. We'd go through the locks, and after dinner, we were on our way again. It's the opportunity of a lifetime to both to complement your academic pursuits and to give you a foundation for anything you do later in life, because this is going to require so much attention on your part, so much organization, so much interaction with other people, and just take it as an opportunity. But don't do it if it's just something you're trying out. And also be serious about your proposal. Read our grant guidelines. Make sure you're following them and that you're willing to follow them as time goes on. Because this is a serious commitment. Matter of fact, we had to make a sort of an exception. John DiPiero was recent, about 2 years ago, and around Christmas, after he got back, he asked for forbearance on submitting his paper. He had not asked to make it part of his senior thesis. He wanted the time because he was applying to law school. And so I forwarded his request to Greg. He said, this is very unusual. We don't usually do it for any other reason, extend your deadline for any other reason than the senior thesis. But in John's case, we did. I think we'll be hearing about John. He's got a political life ahead of him. Well, he should immediately identify all their contacts. That's the preliminary itinerary. And once they've done that, then set up their meetings and make it clear that you're a student, you're not a journalist, you're not a representative of the government, and the purpose of your what you're doing. And one way to do that is to set out the goals of the Circumnavigators Club. And then as you go along, have in mind that final paper. Every contact should reflect the goals of the final paper. And also be courteous, goes without saying. What we have found, we ask the returning grantee to make a presentation at a luncheon of the Washington chapter, usually late September. And what we ask for are the anecdotes, the people you met on a bus, and the next thing they brought you to their house and you met somebody like in a daisy chain, how it favorably had a favorable impact on what you were trying to do. So be alert, be receptive of these kinds of experiences. Well, if you paid attention and thought about it all along. You should have it, at least in your mind, set. Now, I rely heavily on Brian Evans because he is the most experienced on these papers, and he's very helpful to these people. So he does more in that area than I do. I make sure they stay on time. You are going to give us a proposal that is of interest to the Circumnavigators Club, of interest to you, of course, and may have some significance to the world at large. Do you feel passionately about anything that you would want to devote many months to fleshing out? Also, it will give you the opportunity to see whatever your topic is on a global basis, and you will be able to propagate your ideas, your recommendations. So it's an opportunity to be heard, even at the undergraduate level. And then you've got a talking point for the rest of your life. When you put this on your resume, it shows that you're capable of independent study, that you are capable of interacting with numerous cultures and people, that you can set up a schedule within a limited prescribed time frame, to be able to give a brief on what you accomplished. Well, at the annual luncheon for the returning grantee, I give what Brian Evans calls the commercial. After the audience has heard this presentation, I say, this is what you're getting for your money. And to keep this program going, we urge you to give, and to give often, to the foundation.